Hello, this is Judyth Vary Baker, and I'm reading to you from chapter 26 in the book Me and Lee, How I Came to Know, Love, and Lose Lee Harvey Oswald. It's entitled Silence, and it was after Lee was killed. This is what happened afterwards. It starts on page 539. If I was going to live, I had to leave the past behind. But the emotional trauma I experienced watching the murder of the man I loved was devastating. It torpedoed my soul. Awash with feelings of hopelessness, I felt like the walking wounded staggering off a battlefield. The images of Lee getting shot played in my head over and over again. Each time I could hear myself scream in the soundtrack, and thoughts of suicide flooded my head. I barely had the energy to fight them off. The joy had been sucked out of my life, and a cold shroud that I had never known before settled over me. What life? What was left of it? My promising medical career and my hope to cure cancer was reduced to ashes. The only man I ever truly loved was murdered before my eyes, and I could say nothing of what I knew. I measured my loss repeatedly. There would be no more moonlit carriage rides, no glances between us as we walked together. I would never again gaze into Lee's blue-gray eyes or hear him affectionately call me Judyth. I gradually unpacked the suitcase under my bed. There would be no sudden departure to a new life of adventure. My life was now with Robert, a man who for weeks failed to notice my condition. Robert would never buy me begonias or yearn to read my poetry, or would he want to climb Chichen Itza with me? As I combed my hair, I remembered how Lee had caressed it and could not bring myself to cut it. He had loved it long and free. In place of thoughts of suicide, I sank into an abyss of depression. I could not share my situation with Robert. To his usual concerns about sex and saving money, a third was added, making good grades, so he could quickly get into a master's program in geology. I easily convinced him to get this degree right where we were at the University of Florida, citing how expensive it would be to move to New Orleans. Of course, I had no choice but to continue working as a lab assistant at Peninsular Chem Research. But I found myself without the will to continue my night classes at University of Florida. I went to a doctor and he agreed that my health was precarious. The university gave me H grades, allowing me to drop out of school for health reasons. For the next 5 weeks, I struggled to hide my emotions from those around me. I did my best to follow familiar procedures in the lab, but I was unable to concentrate on new material, and the quality of my work suffered. It mattered a little. My boss had told me that my days at PennChem were numbered. I would be terminated as of December 31st. Any mention of Lee's name or the JFK assassination, even accidentally, such as if I heard news on the radio, it made my heart race. I made a conscious decision to guard what was left of my ability to conceal my heartache by refusing to watch, to read, or to listen to any news on the subject. But it was impossible not to hear they had blamed it all on Lee, and that they had identified his killer as Jack Ruby. I knew there would not be an honest investigation. Powerful elements of the government were involved on too many fronts to allow that, and the American media was steeped in a tradition of blind obedience to the government line. The American citizenry was likewise a naive and unwitting accomplice. They would easily swallow the lie that Lee killed Kennedy in a solitary act of insanity. I knew differently. But what could a college student do about it? Besides, I believed I'd be murdered if I spoke out. And if I died, how would Lee's children ever learn the truth about him? They had the right to know that their father had not killed Kennedy, that Lee had lost his own life trying to save the president. They needed to know that when Lee had a chance to flee and save himself, he stood his ground to protect them from retaliation by the monstrous forces he faced. These were my thoughts at the time, and though I wasn't there in Dallas that day, I will always believe in Lee's innocence. I really realized that my work here on Earth was not yet finished, and resolved to go on with my life in hopes that one day I might be able to set the record straight, at least for Lee's children.
I don't know what this is all about. Kill the president? No, so I didn't keep it down in the Sir?
Shoot the president?
I work in that building.
Were you in the building at the time?
Naturally, if I work in that building, yes, sir.
Back up, man! Come on, man. President?
No, they're taking me in because of the fact that I live in Missouri. I'm just a patsy.